Hello. In today's video, I will talk about card 10 of the Major Arcana, which is the Wheel of Fortune. So, how I understand this card is I understand it as related to the Buddha family, Buddha, which is about space. It is represented by the color white, and it is the space from which all the other energies emerge and into which they all return. I think about this card related to this energy because it not only does it have like this space, and not only are we talking about like when the card is in its upright position, we're talking about an opening or an opportunity or good fortune coming into someone's life. And so there's like this kind of space to the card. But it also relates to all the other energies, which I often think about in relationship to the Buddha energy, which holds them all. When we're talking about fortune, or if we want to call something good fortune, we have to have the knowledge and wisdom to know what that is. And so sometimes we may wish for something that in the end was not very good fortune. And so when this card emerges, it's talking about true good fortune. In order for it to know that, it's connected with the clarity of vision that is associated with Vajra energy in the water. So it can see whether or not this thing that's happening, this thing that's coming into one's life is actually good. It has to have not only the clarity, but the broad sight that is associated with karma, as well as karma's action and reaction. And so it's working with this understanding of what's over the next hill, because whatever is getting ready to happen right now, is it actually going to be good for this person when considering everything around, or is it not going to be so good? And so I think about how this card or this energy has to hold that wisdom as well. It's working with the natural life cycles and natural cycles of Ratna, which is dealing with things being aligned. And so is it the right time right now for this to happen? Is it actually going to be goodness, or is it going to create other problems? And so in order to know whether or not one's fortune will be good, there has to be some understanding of the cycles and what's coming up and what cycle we're in right now, and things being aligned correctly for the goodness to emerge. Along with that, there has to be this passion or desire, this will to engage, and which I think about in relation to the Padma or the fire energy. When this card is in its reversed state, it's working with being shut down, closing off opportunities, missing opportunities, depression, routine, like being stuck in a routine or stuck in like a certain way of seeing and understanding things and not able to allow the space for something new to come in. And so I often think about the fire being missing when somebody's in a depression, or, where you're shutting down and not allowing the space for this thing to emerge. And so it's working with that fire of the Padma energy. This card went through 3 changes, or 3 stages of development. The one was, of course, my doodle on paper, where I had words associated with it, kind of a messy circle trying to represent, the wheel of fortune. It had the elements and the astrological signs on on the design. When it went into electronic form, it became a better looking wheel because I was able to cheat and use a tool to create a circle. And then it grew trees and it grew grass and this whole scenery. The last stage of development, so when it went into electronic form, the background was white. However, as you probably noticed on the card, the background's actually dark now. And that came about through the development of the box, which was like kind of an afterthought, because initially when this deck went from just, doodles into drawings into, okay, I'm creating a deck of cards, I was looking for printers around the United States. I definitely wanted it printed here. And I had some trouble finding a printer who could print the cards with the quality that I needed, and print a box, and print in the United States. A lot of the printers of the game companies, which is what I had to go with in order to get the coating that is going to help prevent the cards from fraying. When I went to the game company printers, their higher quality cards required that you go to China to have them printed, and I didn't want it printed in China. I definitely wanted it printed in the United States. I wanted it printed at a local printer, but the local printers, because they're just printers and not game company printers, they weren't able to give me the coating that I needed on the cards in order for them to be playing cards that wouldn't fray and wouldn't fall apart quite as easily as just a regular card with, like, whatever coating you would put on like a business card or a pamphlet. So it took me months to try and find the right printer. When I was considering local printers, the company that I'm with right now is a company in Florida, and they produce games and playing cards. My problem with them was that the quality of card that they were able to offer me, I couldn't have it printed in the United States, and they were going to require that I have it shipped to China in order to print them on thicker paper. I really didn't want that, but after going through trying to find the right printer and unable to find a printer who could print the coating on the cards, I realized that it would be better to have the coating than to have it a little thicker. And so I kind of let go of this attachment that I had to the thicker cardstock and decided to go with this printer who prints in Florida. When I was going through this process, the printers that are local were unable to print a box, and so I was conceiving of this deck without a box. I was trying to understand some creative ways to contain and distribute the cards. I was trying to find, creative ways to package them. However, once I kind of exhausted the options that were local, I ended up going back to this printer who is able to print a box. And so while designing the box, the background of this card changed. Basically, what happened is, initially I was going to put the Emperor and Empress on the packaging or on the box or bag or whatever I came up with. At one point I was thinking about a bag, at another point like some kind of wrap to kind of just wrap the cards and tie them with, some twine, and like I was going through a lot of like trying to figure out how best to package them. And when I realized that I was going to be able to have a box, then I had to design the box. And so while I was going through the design phase of the box, the Wheel of Fortune kept coming up, kept arising, kept like calling to me. I put it on the box, but the initial card had a white background, and so I put it on the box with a black background, and it had such this mystical and kind of drew me in kind of a feeling that I decided to change the card also to the black background. When the box was designed, it felt like it had more depth to it. It felt like I had more curiosity about it, like what is around it, what's behind this wheel, how is this wheel suspended? Like I had all of these, like this curiosity that emerged once the background changed to like this darker color. One of the other really interesting things about the development of not only this card, but the box and in relation to this card is, so I went with this printer and paid for the print job, paid for a certain kind of paper and a certain coating, and was ready to go. And in my back and forth with the printer, because it's been a lot of back and forth with trying to tweak things and no, that's not what I wanted, and them distorting the images and having to resend the images and like this kind of thing, like there's been so much back and forth. In one of these exchanges, they told me, we're sorry, but the cardstock that you want, we don't have. And so we recommend you go with this thinner cardstock. Of course, I was upset. I had these dates for things to go out. I was like, you guys told me 4 weeks. Like I was holding on to this idea that I had this deadline and that I had already paid for this product. How can you possibly tell me you don't have it now? In the exchange, I shared with them that the cardstock they were offering me was way too thin, and in fact, the cardstock that I chose was still a bit thin, but I basically went with it because it was the best option for the cards with what I was able to gather, between here, like throughout the United States without shipping them to China. They then told me they had this thicker cardstock. And it's actually the cardstock that I initially wanted, that they told me I would have to go to China to print. And so like this good fortune opened up in dealing with this design, this card, this Wheel of Fortune. It was like this stuff opened up for me when I was able to relax around this deadline and around what I thought they were supposed to be doing and how I thought things should have progressed. And when that happened, it was like it opened this wonderful space for this better card to emerge and for this better fortune to emerge. Had I stayed stuck, maybe I would have thrown a fit and thrown the printer away completely and asked for my money back and then had to start with ground one, which is a place that I can go to, like, okay, forget this, I ordered such and such, like holding someone to what they agreed. However, with the design of this box and with this card being like the major theme that I was working with around that time, I was able to relax and I was able to allow this energy to come in and allow the good fortune to manifest. And so, yeah, that's kind of the story of the box. That's the story of this card and this energy and how I understand it in its upright position. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I want to say for now about this card. However, I do want to share with you that this card marks the halfway point of the major arcana. And so in terms of the major arcana, we're halfway there. we do have the court and then the minor arcana to go through, and so we're not nearly halfway through the entire deck. But in terms of the major arcana, we're at the halfway point. And so I would like to thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you soon about the Justice card. Thanks again.